Today we are taking a look at a new plugin from Kiive Audio called KStrip. It combines elements from 3 classic channel strips, the Neve 1081, API 550B, and an SSL style strip. Each section includes EQ, compression, saturation, and a useful gate module, along with the option to switch between the different console types. In this video, I'll demo how it sounds, compare it to some popular Neve and API emulations, and explore how the gate and shaper sections perform. Before we dive in, if you need help with your mixing and mastering, whether that's me mixing your track or walking you through with one of my coaching programs, please feel free to reach out. I always love to help. Let's go. All right, so here is KStrip. I'll break it down really quick and then we'll get into some listening examples. But you basically have 4 main sections. So the first section is your saturation, and you can drive it. You have a trim. You can mix the saturation, which is kind of nice. Also has a sidechain filters down here. Odd and even harmonics, which I love having. I'm a fan of even harmonics, although if you want to get a little more gritty, odd's the way to go. But you can have the A, which I can only assume stands for API, S, which can only assume stands for SSL, and then N, which we can only assume stands for Neve. So you can switch between the different saturations of those different channels or different colors, right? Just by switching this. So that's pretty cool. And then you can turn the pre on and off. And it goes down the line. Pretty basic setup. Same with the SSL. You have Neve, API, and SSL. Now, they don't tell you what they are. I'll show you guys in a second when we do some comparisons. I think the Neve is the 1081, and I think the API is the 550B. A couple ways to show you that is the 550A is only 3 EQ points, where this is 4. And also, once I show you the curves, it looks a lot closer to the B than the A. Lastly, it also has the same EQ points. So seems that is what the case is. Next is the compression section. And what's really cool with the API version is you do have the feedback and feed forward options, as well as the different knee settings that they have, kind of like the 2500, attack, release, all that. And then the Neve, or the SSL, is just like an SSL compressor, pretty straightforward. And then lastly, the Neve one is like this, probably emulating something like the 33609. And then moving over, you have this final sort of master section with added features. So stereo width, pretty cool to have. And you even have the stereo width high pass filter. So say you want to spread the stereo under 200 Hertz, you want to keep it mono, you can turn this up and do that, which is super cool to have on a channel strip. Inputs, outputs, and then phase flip. And then down here, you have this really cool gate section, which we'll get into soon. And it has a screen that shows you the gate working, sort of like maybe FabFilter's gate, kind of same idea, where you can actually see the action happening. And to me, that's always cool to have. You can see where the ghost notes might be and stuff like that. So really cool gate there. And then lastly, nice to have a shaper, which is basically attack, release, or attack and sustain. So if you're mixing a kick on this and you want the kick to punch a little more, you can hit the attack. Or if you want to extend longer, sustain, you guys get the idea on that. All right, so moving on, let's check this out and compare it to some of the standard API and Neve plugins that are out now. All right, so first we're going to compare the KStrip Neve sections to the UAD 1081. And at first I compared it to a 1073, the UAD 1073, and it was a bit off. And then I realized, well, this has 4 different knobs, looks more like a 1081. And then when I switched that, I got quite a bit closer, as you can see with the curve here. Now, it's still not perfect, and that's okay. You don't want every EQ to be exactly the same, and that's what's cool. You can use different 1081s and maybe get a little bit of a different sound, and that's what makes, you know, music great, is weird little differences between EQs and so forth. So I did get it fairly close. First will be the KStrip, and then you'll hear the UAD 1081. And all this is a drum loop, a 1-bar loop going back and forth, back and forth. So we're not hearing any like big changes between the drums. All right, here we go. All right, so they sound pretty close. I think if I close my eyes and you A-beat it, I would not be able to tell you which one is which. Definitely achieved the Neve sound, at least when you compare it to a Neve emulation from UAD. let's move on to the API. For the API, we are using the A section of the KStrip for the saturation, EQ, and compression. Compressor is off. We are boosting this once again 10 dB. We are boosting this 4 dB at 10K, and I think the same thing 100 hertz at 4 dB. And same, we're using the 550B API from Waves and doing the same exact thing. We got 100 here and 10K here. I'm gonna hit play and let you guys decide what you think. First is the KStrip and then the Waves API. So those are pretty close as well. Sometimes I hear a little bit of difference in the low end, and I haven't probably listened enough to really describe what it is, but they feel a little different. But that's just anomalies of using probably different API EQs to emulate whatever they're using. Also, you know, the Waves one has been around forever, so who knows if that makes a difference in coding and so forth, but they both sound great, both give that API sound, and I'd be happy to use either one in a mix if the API sound was something I was going for. All right, so let's check out the compressors next. All right, so for this compression overview, what I did was roughly set up each compressor with about the same settings, same ratio, fast release, medium attack, 4:1 ratio. And we'll just go through and compare each one. And just so you can hear the slight differences of what these different compressors can achieve for you. Let's take a listen. So as you can hear, each one has its own flavor. API has that sort of mid-range push. SSL always just has that clean snare pop. And then the Neve is a little bit warmer, a little gooier. Closer to the API, the SSL to me sounds the most different, and that just could be settings, but they each definitely give that sound of those different individual units. All right, so now that we've gone over the compressor, let's check out the gate and shaper. So on the right here, you'll see this gate section and then the shaper section. First, let me just show you the gate. It works like a normal gate. It has threshold, attack, release, your range, hold time, which is cool to have, as well as this look ahead, which is also nice to have. But it works really well. Now, obviously, we're just using this drum loop. It's not going to work that great as when you were just using it on a snare or something like that. But just turning it on and off, you'll hear what a great job it can do. So that is basically the gate. Really pretty straightforward on how gates work. And next we'll move on to this shaper, which works pretty well. I feel like it is a little bit subtle, but it can do the trick if you just need a little more attack or a little more sustain. So as you can hear, like I said, subtle, but can do the trick. All right, lastly, the saturation module. Everyone loves saturation. I cranked it up. I'm gonna play it through so you guys can hear the differences between the three. But to me, even though we're like kind of hitting the saturation hard on here, what I love about this is when you're not using it completely saturated, having the ability to change the even and odd harmonics on a mix can be really helpful if you need a little more warmth or if you need a little more grit or, attack and edge with the odd harmonics. So let me just play this so you guys can hear it, and obviously you can download the demo and really dig into it yourself. All right, so that is the overview of the Kiive Audio KStrip. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Do you need it? It's up to you. If you want something that you can use, harmonics from a Neve, the EQ from an API, and the compressor from the SSL, or maybe reverse on that, then it could be a really cool way of doing all that. Also, if you don't have a lot of these emulations already, this would be a perfect plugin to get because you get all of them in one. Also, with the added features of the gate, the shaper, which is cool. I feel like it could push a little bit more. And also, I didn't mention you can do mid-side EQ with this and compression, which is a whole nother feature that adds a lot to the package of what this is. So yeah, if you need a good emulation plugin, I think this would be a great one to get. As you could hear, it sounds just as good as the UAD ones we compared it to, or the Waves ones we compared it to. So it's a great plugin if that's what you're looking for. Anyway, hit me up if you need any help with your mixing and mastering, and I'll see you guys soon.